In the twilight of their lives, a group of 4 unlikely friends discovers a shared passion for photos of grandchildren over liquid lunches and murder. Together, they form a club of amateur yet capable sleuths who can talk their way out of trouble and into any room. But when local police find a string of dead bodies around town, speculation turns to the group of golden gumshoes. Could one of the elderly analysts actually be the murderer? The name of the group, the Thursday Murder Club. The book is by Richard Osman, and you're listening to Lit Society. Let's get lit! This is Kari.
And this is Alexis.
And you're listening to Lit Society, a show about books and drama. Woo-hoo. Alexis, it's good to see you.
Always good to see you.
Good to see your gorgeous face. I'm going to steal your question from week 1 of this season.
Oh, boy.
Or week 2 or whatever. What did you do for fun? What one thing did you do for fun this week? And what one thing did you do for self-care?
For self-care, I bought a new shampoo. I hope I didn't say that last week, but I bought a new shampoo.
Okay, cool.
I purchased a new shampoo, actually a couple products, and I got to try them. I didn't wash my hair, but I purchased these new products so I could use and then do
fine.
a new protective style. So
do you want to tell us the names of the products, or?
I only remember one is called 4C Only.
Okay. 4C?
Yep, 4C
like
only.
Our hair texture? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's pretty cool. And then for fun.
I thought you was going to say Texture by Tracy Ellis Ross. I was going to say, girl, that ain't for you. But 4C Only, that's us. Okay.
That's me. Get into it. That's what I be doing with the 4C and stuff.
And then what did you do for fun?
What did I do for fun? Oh, I want to learn how to be a photographer. So I took a picture and I tried to take a picture in a, I tried to make it snazzy.
Way. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I did that. I practiced taking photos. That's all.
Okay,
so I'm gonna
that's
take
cool.
a photo class. That's something I'm interested in doing.
Well, you have a friend who is a photographer and can definitely recommend some mentors if you're interested.
I know, and I think my friend Kari is so good at it. I just love it.
Okay, anyway.
One day. I just got to take it one day at a time.
Yeah, so, no, that's cool.
Yeah, so I just play around sometimes with some photos and see how it turns out. How about you, Kari? What did you do for fun? And what one thing did you do for self-care?
I tried really hard to think of something I did this week for fun. And I don't know, you guys. I really didn't do anything for fun. It's been a crazy busy week. Nothing compared to yours. I know you're still in the thick of work.
Mm-hmm.
But for self-care, I did get back into my skincare routine.
Hey.
Yeah. And so I'm trying to prepare 30 minutes every night just for my skin.
Oh, wow. That's a big deal, though.
Yeah. And then I put on some music. I have a dimmer in my bathroom.
Uh-huh.
So, I shower with these oils and then get out and do this 5-step routine on my face.
Oh,
for real. I don't think it matters, but it's just the process of touching your face and caring just for you. That is good on the mental health, I think.
It is, but why is it that you think it's not doing anything for you?
Because, you're going to look the way you look. I don't know. I don't know.
No,
but anyway.
These things help. You using some
we'll
toner?
See. If Jackie Aina's to be believed, I'm going to look 30 forever. So if I could just hit pause here and never age again, it'd be great. But
you
will
will.
See.
No worries. You will.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I mean, you already look 20-ish.
Oh, thank you. So that's not that far off, so I'm slightly insulted. Let's move on. Society Says. Now it's time for Society Says, where we share your comments, listeners, with the rest of our lit society. Alexis, is there a comment you thought particularly lit this week?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
This one is from _, that's life.
Okay, I like it.
And they said, they were responding to a question, and they said, I can't pick just one. I just love you two and have missed you so much during your break. Isn't that the sweetest?
That is. That's so sweet.
Somebody missed us.
What was that question? I did have a short survey on Instagram, and I probably asked them which segment of our show, because our show is divided into like 6 segments, which is their favorite. So they didn't choose one. They just love the show, and we love that. That's really kind. Thank you so much. What was their name?
_, that's a life.
Love it. Thank you so much. Ups and downs, and that's
exactly.
Life.
Thank you. And so, Kari, what did you find? Did you find a comment that was litty?
Yeah, I did. This one is actually from YouTube. What?
YouTube? We getting comments on the YouTubers?
That's right. And listeners, you might remember that the first episode of every month this year will also have a video episode accompanying it, like last week, the Nickel Boys. So this is a comment we received on our Daisy Jones episode.
How clever.
So this comes from YouTube, and it's from Dika G. And they say, love... Hey, Dika. Love that the episodes are now going to be on YouTube. Just listened on Spotify and now have y'all on my TV. Greetings from Qatar. What? They listening to us in Qatar, though?
I mean, for real, we on somebody's TV.
Right. In Qatar. Us. Who'd have known? Who'd have thunk it?
Can you believe that?
No.
Oh.
So thank you so much, Dika G. We really appreciate you. Thank you for listening. Remember, listeners, if you have a comment you'd like to share with the society, please message us on social media. That's Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, but we ain't never gonna see it because we ain't never on there, to tell you the truth. And you can find us Lit Society Pod everywhere. And we especially love this option. If you want to head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a review along with a comment about why you love your show, we might share your comment on the show. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Let's move on to the theme of the week. Each week, readers, as you know, we choose a theme to discuss inspired by the book we're reading. And this week, our theme is, are you ready, Alexis?
Yeah.
The age-defying benefits of having older friends. Aww. The fortunate of us have golden friends, as we're going to call them, in our lives. And, you know, maybe they're our grandparents. We'll include that. Aunties, or maybe a family friend. You know, it's always weird when I'm talking to a coworker about a friend and that friend is like 80.
Right.
It's just weird to describe it. Like, yeah, no, my friend, she lives in an assisted living community and she got jokes for days. So this golden friend might be in their 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, or beyond. But their spirit is young and vibrant. They give us the best advice, even when they're giving terrible advice. There's a drop of wisdom in it that we can take out.
Wait, that might be like Lady Russell from Persuasion.
I was thinking of Lady Russell from Persuasion. But that was good advice, girl. Don't marry no broke man. Alexis, have you received amazing advice from a golden friend? If so, do tell.
I did. I was turning an age, and she was like, "This is the best time of your life." And I was feeling some type of way. I didn't realize that I would get to that age and feel that way. And I was feeling some type of way. I didn't think I would, but I did just for a moment. And she was like, "This is the best time of your life." I felt more confident at this time. And you just enjoy it. Relax and enjoy it. Don't put pressure on age. And I never felt myself to be kind of an age person. Like, I didn't care. You know, it's not a big deal. But that really helped me. It just reminded me it's just a number. It's not a big deal.
What benefits have you found from having friends much older than you, Alexis?
Oh,
Like
I
overall.
love it. Oh, I love it. And you know, they don't even have to be they just can be older. So I've always enjoyed I've always wanted to have an older sister. I have older brothers, and I've always wanted to have an older sister. So I just love talking to older people. They could be 20 years, they could be 40 years older. It doesn't matter. I just love it. I love having older friends because they have so much wisdom. They can share so much advice, and they, you know, they have experience. They share recipes. Can I tell you about a time where I invited some friends over?
Yeah.
I had a dinner. It was going to be my first time I was going to try to cook a turkey. So I said, I'm going to cook a turkey, but then I'm just going to make it like a soul food dinner thing. And it was my first time like cooking all these dishes minus cornbread.
Because you didn't grow up on soul food. I have to tell the listeners, you are fake Black. You listen to Campton, Antonio, whatever their name is. And you didn't taste greens till you was 30. Okay, go ahead.
Right. So yeah, and I invited like 6 older women, and at the time I think they were all above 75, and that was the best. I remember it forever. But because I was so busy cooking, I didn't take any pictures of that moment. But I remember it in my head. What a good time it was. And they complimented my food, which was great because it was my first time. They told me what I could tweak and do better and different. And I just had such a great time spending time with just the golden friends and me. It was wonderful. It was wonderful.
I love that.
So what about you? I want to know because I know you have your share of golden friends.
I do. Fortunately, I've had problems in past relationships and even with platonic friends and received the best advice ever from a golden friend. And they really helped me see the bigger picture and to get out of like the pettiness of the moment. Especially have I found, I have to say in romantic relationships, they'll be like, girl, you don't know the half of it. Let me tell you about this time I tried to hire a hitman on my husband. And you be like, what? Not you, girl. Not you, Elga. Yep. Elga has lived. Okay.
They have been involved in some things, right? That we don't know nothing about.
Yes. Yeah. And it helps. I feel like those conversations help me get over myself and like my feelings because it's just a small moment in the grand scheme of life. And, you know, people say life is short, but it's the longest thing you'll ever do. So talking to them really helped me put everything in its place. And then many of us have friends who are our age, who we met at school, work, or in social circles. And these friends often share our same insecurities. You know, they're trying to get to where we're going, which is usually some, you know, forming a family, some career success. And sometimes too, we can harbor microaggressions that we've picked up and competitive animosity. Even subconsciously, we might have these microaggressive exchanges picked up from peers throughout the week and year, unaware of the negative effects that such emotions have on our physical and mental peace. So speaking with someone much older than us can take us out of that arena, that like dog eat dog, especially at work, always having your guard up feeling. And it puts us in the company of a friend who wants nothing from us and is likely much more self-confident than we are. Right. So they've been where we've been, like you said, maybe, you know, maybe they have reached the career that we want, or maybe they haven't. Maybe they were housewives their most of their lives. Right. Still, they've, you know, seen it all and done most of it. Yeah. So they can help us choose wise courses in life and to look at things to have the right perspective on situations. So when our golden friend is from a culture outside of our own, they can even help us understand the world as a whole, providing an education that, you know, we're not going to get anywhere else.
Yeah. I have a friend outside of my culture, and she is the best. She's had so many experiences in life. She's introduced me to things, and I love that relationship.
Is the friend you're referring to, do they also live outside of the country?
No, not currently, but they have.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a beautiful thing. And they're like a time capsule for whatever period, they're so sharing their experience from. Yeah. Yeah. That's like the way I love nonfic books and biographies and autobiographies. Talking to a golden friend from a different time is like reading a autobiography, like the best kind, because that person has a connection with you. We really, especially during these times, need to listen to our golden friends, listen to their stories, laugh with them, cry with them, look through their pictures, let them tell you about their late husband over and over again, about their kids, especially when many of our golden friends have to remain isolated these days. It's so important. Yeah, that we continue reaching out to them and letting them know we value their input and personality. Practically, maybe we can even run errands for them, pick up their groceries, or just call and let them know, hey, I'm thinking about you. What's up? What you doing?
Right. I agree. Oh, I love that.
Good Housekeeping magazine called a generation gap friendship, what we're called in Golden Friends, one of the most important and essential friendships in a woman's life. And I would say, yeah, that also goes for men, but Good Housekeeping is a women's magazine. Mm-hmm. In the article, Anna Kudak, co-author of What Happy Women Do, says bridging the generation gap not only increases the friend pool that we have, but it also expands and supports mental well-being. Friendships with older and younger people, for older people, help broaden your perspective, which in turn allows you to have compassion and empathy in your day-to-day life. So cultivating these friendships can make us more well-rounded individuals. Mm-hmm. So, that's it. Those are the benefits of having a golden friend,
I love it.
So next time you see an old lady crossing the street, don't help her. Tell her, girl, you want some wine or something? Let's go back to my place, have a chat. I want to know about your life. All right, you ready?
Tell me a story, yes. Mm-hmm. I love it.
If you don't get out my way. All right, let's take a break.
Okay.
Thank you for being a friend.
Oh, yeah.
Travel down the road and back again.
Hey, so we started from the bottom, now we're here, girl.
It's true.
Oh, yeah.
Pal and a confidant.
This is my part right here. Ooh, if I did
everyone you knew.
the biggest gift, the biggest. Thank you for being my friend. Oh, yeah.
And we're back. Hey, and we're back.
Alexis, can you please give us some background on our author, Richard Osman, and perhaps his inspiration for the Thursday Murder Club?
Okay, well, let me tell you this. Richard Osman was born in Essex, England. And before he wrote this novel, this very first novel of his, The Thursday Murder Club, the world knew him as a television presenter, a producer, and a comedian.
I thought it was funny. He didn't want this novel to be seen as a celebrity work. And when I read that, I was thinking, boy, don't nobody know you.
And on this side of the world, right?
Don't worry, Dick. We won't look at it like that. We don't know who you are.
No worries.
You are not Tobias Menzies. Okay, go ahead.
That side of the world may have knew him. In the UK, they knew him. I did not know him. Can I say that again? I did not know him. All right. But he's best known as a presenter on the BBC quiz show Pointless. He was also a presenter on the quiz shows Two Tribes and Richard Osman's House of Games. And while he was in secondary school, and I didn't know what secondary school was, so I looked it up. Secondary school in England is between ages of 16 and 11. He got his first broadcasting experience as a regular contributor to Turn It Up, which is an open access music show that aired on Sunday evenings on the BBC radio Sussex.
Ages 16 to 11, you said?
Ages 11 to 16, okay?
Okay, fine. Yeah, sure.
Secondary school.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
He has a podcast called The Birthday Game, but I checked.
Hey, no one cares.
The last episode of that was in December 2019, so I don't think he's still doing it.
Don't check it out. No, I'm just kidding. Don't check it.
He's a regular on the show, Let's Play Darts. Again, over in the UK, over there.
Show sound very English.
Steven Spielberg actually acquired the rights to his book. So there's a TV adaptation underway for the Thursday Murder Club.
I saw that. So Steven Spielberg is not working on the TV adaptation?
No.
There's going to be a television show and a movie?
That's what it sounds like. Yep.
Okay. Wow.
So he's got a lot of TV credits under his belt. He says he's always wanted to write a book because he's always been a writer. He's always read crime books, and his inspiration for writing this book was having a discussion. He said it came from a visit to an upmarket retirement village. I didn't know what that was, so I looked it up. Apparently, it's an expensive retirement village for affluent people. So he went to a visit there, was chatting with people. He was like, I could write me a book about this. And so he said he met a lot of lovely people. That's what he said. And so he wanted to write about that. So he wrote the book in secret over 18 months. The book was published in September of 2020, and it sold 45,000 copies in the first 3 days and became a Sunday Times bestseller. He is brother to Matt Osman, who was a founding member of the Britpop band Suede, or London Suede, which is what it's called in the U.S. And IMDb says he is like 6'7". 6'7". Yeah. Mm-hmm. He's pretty tall. So that's it. That's what I know about Richard Osman. Do you know anything about him?
Don't know anything else about him. If I did, I'm sure you already covered it. So thank you very much for that insider's look at Richard Osman, the author of our book. Now, please, can you provide us with a brief, no spoiler synopsis of the Thursday Murder Club?
Sure. And here we go. 4 residents of Cooper Chase, an affluent and peaceful retirement home, meet together on Thursdays to discuss unsolved murders. They are the Thursday Murder Club. Their first live case presents itself after the murder of the partner of a local developer who wants to uproot a graveyard and chop down trees near the home to expand housing. So, Kari,
yes,
who do you think would love this book?
I think if you love to read about clever, underestimated underdogs who outsmart the world around them, or if you watched Murder, She Wrote, I didn't, but this seems like it would go in line with that. Poirot, Matlock, you know, anything in that category.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you'd love this book.
I watched those. I would love this book.
And Alexis, what were your first thoughts of the Thursday Murder Club?
So listen, I was like in the process of looking for my books for the season, right? And I was really busy at work, so I cheated. A friend was like, hey, look at this book I'm reading. I said, gotcha. So I added it to my list because the cover looked interesting, okay? The cover and the title looked interesting. So
we literally judge books by their cover over here all the time.
In real life, okay? True story.
And now for a spoiler-filled deep dive into the Thursday Murder Club. And I will just say briefly, content warning, we are for the smallest moment going to touch on the matter of suicide. Very, very briefly, but you should know. Alexis, please take it away.
Killing someone is easy. Hiding the body? Now that's usually the hard part. That's how you get caught. I was lucky enough to stumble upon the right place, though. The perfect place, really. I come back from time to time, just to make sure everything is still safe and sound. It always is, and I suppose it always will be. Sometimes I'll have a cigarette, which I know I shouldn't, but it's my only vice. Our story begins with the meeting of Joyce and Elizabeth. One day, Joyce is having lunch, and Elizabeth walks up to her and says, I see you are eating, but I want to talk about knife wounds.
Is the rest of this deep dive going to go like this? I just want to know so I can be prepared.
No.
so I can mute my mic. Okay.
Imagine if a girl is stabbed 3 or 4 times under the breastbone without severing an artery, how long would it take the girl to bleed to death? To me and to everybody else, that seems like a random question, right? However,
Yes.
Elizabeth is one who seems to know everything and know who everybody is, okay? So she already knew that Joyce was a retired nurse. So she saw an opportunity when she saw Joyce having lunch to ask her this question. Joyce is intrigued by the question and asks a follow-up. What kind of knife? How much did she weigh? Joyce then provides an answer. 45 minutes without medical assistance. But if she had medical assistance, she would live. Glad to have offered the assistance, Joyce asked, "May I see the pictures, please?" Delighted.
These old people are dark.
Elizabeth is like, "Oh, I like that she's interested. Come. I invite you to our weekly meeting on Thursdays. By the way, it's a Thursday murder club. Join us."
Well, Elizabeth hands her the photo and goes, "You can have this one. We all have our own copies of the murder scene."
Of the murder scene. That's a thing. The case that the murder club is reviewing is about a woman who was believed to be killed by her boyfriend. The boyfriend bolted from the officer's squad car on the way to a police interview and hadn't been seen since. He had even hit the officer before he ran off. We're later going to learn that the officer was one of the founding members of the murder club. The club was started by Elizabeth and Penny, the other founding member. Penny was a former inspector with the Kent Police for many years, and she would bring case files from unsolved mysteries, and her and Elizabeth would go through the files line by line. Now, mind you, she's retired, but she would go get these files and nobody would say anything to her because she's a golden. She's
a golden girl.
She's a golden girl. Mm-hmm. So they didn't like the idea of guilty people like getting away with murder. So they were committed to looking through these cases and, getting some answers. And they did find something, but I don't think there's much they could do with them. Is that what it was?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Penny, though, now is in a nursing home and she's suffering from dementia. And her husband, John, is who cares for her. And, well, he sits with her daily. I mean, he sits with her all day. And Elizabeth often visits her and keeps her updated on the stories.
Yeah, because her and Elizabeth were buddies.
Yeah.
And then her husband, John, Penny's husband, John, Elizabeth knows, holds her hand and talks to her all day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But there are nurses that care for her.
Yeah, nurses that care for her. So he really just sits and reads and talks to her all day. And then whenever Elizabeth has a case, she'll go over and chat her up about the case.
Yeah, because they both think she might be able to hear them even though she's unconscious.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it has no ability to, never mind that. Yeah, no ability to respond. The members of the club are Elizabeth, who is possibly a former secret agent. Is that what it is? She has some experience in that side of the world, y'all.
Mm-hmm.
She been doing some things. She got lots of connections. She got people that owe her favors all over the world. So secret agent, yes.
Mm-hmm.
She's also married to Stephen, who she's monitoring for dementia. She also gives him a sedative every day so that he sleeps through the night. She wants him to stay in bed.
And he's like her third husband for a number of reasons, right?
Yeah, her third husband. Yes, yes. And then there's Abraham, and he is or was a psychiatrist. He might still be seeing patients. Patients love him so much they still come out and chat with him. And so he used to help out Penny and Elizabeth before he actually joined the club. And so they invited him in. It was like, okay, we got a psychiatrist on hand. And then there was Ron Richie, the famous trade union leader, and he was the first resident of Cooper's Chase. He's also father to Jason Richie, who is a professional boxer. Now, Ron Richie got invited to the club because the club is booked under French opera, I think. And so he said
Japanese opera
history. Yeah. So he was like, what is that? And so he crashes one of the meetings. He's like, I ain't falling for it. What y'all doing in here? And he listened.
And they liked it. Yeah. They was like, oh, you suspicious. You can be part of the club. They named it that club so no one would ask, but when he started asking about it, they admired that in him.
Yeah, and they say, welcome to the club. Join us. Look at some pictures. The thing that he does is he helps them question or not believe everything that the police say. And so they like that contribution. So now let me tell you a little bit about Cooper's Chase. Cooper's Chase is owned by Ian Ventham and a partner, 25%, Tony Curran. It's a luxury retirement village on a land formerly owned by the Catholic Church. It used to be a home to a convent. So it's built on 12 acres of woodland and beautiful open hillside. There are 2 small lakes there, one real, one created. There's a chapel still on the premises that the residents use. There's a graveyard that they call the Garden of Eternal Rest. And you got to be 65 to live there. There's also an arthritis pool / jacuzzi. They got a sauna, a gym room, an exercise studio, an upscale restaurant, a lounge, a library. They have everything they need. It's upscale.
Sound nice to me.
One day, they invite a police constable for a chat. You know, her name is Donna DeFreitas. We're going to call her Donna. PC Donna is a 26-year-old and she's unmarried. PC Donna, or Donna, thinks she'll be giving her standard presentation, practical tips for home security to the golden folks, right? That's what she's thinking. But as she begins to give her presentation, she is interrupted by Elizabeth. Say here, lady, we don't want to talk about security. We already know all about that. And in fact, one member, Ron, said, you know what? I'm so blind. I wouldn't know if they'd show me a card or not, what it was. And I will welcome a visitor, a burglar, wait.
Because he goes, listen, we understand. Don't let anyone in we don't know. We got it. I promise. And then Ron is like, well, I'm going to tell you my eyesight's so bad. If they show me a library card, I would let them in. And it might be nice to have a burglar. At least we would get visitors for once. It's so cute when you read it.
It is really cute. So Elizabeth is like, why don't you talk about institutional sexism in the workforce and the police force? So they end up having a nice discussion and they invite Donna to stay for lunch. They forget to tell, when Joyce sent out the invitations for the meeting, they forgot to tell Donna that it was the murder club meeting. So welcome.
They're slyly initiating a cop into their club. So Donna shows up at this old people home to tell them about security, and they like, yeah. We're really just here to help for you to work on our cases.
Yes, we need some thoughts and feedback.
Right.
So Ian Ventham, the owner of Cooper's Chase, he purchased it a few years ago from a friend who needed quick cash. Tony Curran is his partner. He owns 25% of Cooper's Chase. Tony does all the construction. Tony actually threatened to break Ian's arm if he refused to let him in on the venture. Yeah, so he let him in. Tony has a history of violent behavior, and actually Ian used to use him for that purpose too. So Ian wants to expand on the land to build more luxury apartments because he knows that's where the money is. He wants to cut down the woodlands, the beautiful trees, and move the graveyard so he can make a new development called the Woodlands. And he wants to cut his partner, Tony Curran, out of the new development. But who's going to replace Tony? He's got an idea. Bogdan. Ian wants Bogdan to replace Tony. Bogdan is Polish and is like the maintenance guy That's what I understood, that he was like the maintenance guy for Cooper's Chase.
Yeah, like the suit.
Mhm.
So he fixes things. Yeah, the maintenance guy, like you said.
Yeah. His mom died and he inherited money from her. So he doesn't really need money. He just enjoys work and the people he does the work for. But Ian owes Bogdan like 4,000 pounds, but he hopes Bogdan will be thrown out of the country so he doesn't have to pay him. Now, Ian Ventham, people don't like him. He's not a likable character. He's just not.
He's greedy. He's selfish. He's a liar.
All of that. Bogdan and Ian Ventham meet for lunch at a coffee shop. And when Ian shows up, he parks in the handicap parking because it's close to the building. Ian is also cheap. So when they meet to discuss the $4,000 that he owes Bogdan, he was like, what's $2,800 between friends? He said, I got $300 for you, but the check is actually for $2,800. It's no big deal, right?
So he's trying to cheat him.
So Bogdan doesn't really care because he already has money. Like I said, he does stuff because he likes what he does. So he accepts what Bogdan offers. He doesn't seem to have any hard feelings behind it. Ian then offers Bogdan an opportunity to replace Ian's partner, Tony Curran. So, which means he'll be doing more of the heavy lifting when it comes to developing the property. Bogdan says, if you fire Tony, he might just kill you. Ian says, let me worry about that. Ian knows there's a meeting planned the next day where everybody's at the Cooper's Chase are going to join together and the residents of Cooper's Chase are going to come together and talk about the graveyard and the graveyard being moved and the woodlands being cut down. So Ian thinks this is the prime opportunity to tell Tony, because if Tony reacts negatively, people will be around to see it. He'll have witnesses.
Basically, Tony won't be able to kill him in front of a whole bunch of people.
So he says, right? Another property that Ian is interested in is a nearby farm owned by Gordon Playfair. Gordon Playfair owns Hillcrest and won't sell to Ian because he didn't like him. He don't like him. People don't like Ian. Can I assure you of that? Ian decided, though, even though he knows the father doesn't like him and he knows people don't like him, he feel like that's their problem. Ian decided he's going to work on Gordon's daughter and try to convince Gordon's daughter to convince her father to sell. Gordon's daughter is like 50 years old and Ian feels like she's given up on life. So he's very shallow. Anyway, but he figures if he flirts with her for a couple of weeks, he could get her to convince Gordon to sell the property. At the meeting to discuss the moving of the graveyard and cutting down of the woodlands, the murder club members are present. And Ron is especially vocal because he doesn't like what Ian is doing. He feels like he's taking liberties, and Richie doesn't like when anybody takes liberties with him. Father Mackey is a local, and he's also in attendance, and he's concerned about the graveyard being moved. So he's there to hear what's going to be said. He does not want the graveyard moved. Ian considers this meeting as just a hearing of the residents' complaints because he's going to do what he's going to do anyway. And as planned, he fires Tony Curran. Ian and Tony are outside having an animated conversation, and Ron Richie and his son Jason and Joyce happen to see this argument. After going their separate ways, Tony decides Ian needs to pay for trying to cut him out of this deal. Tony used his building company as a way to front for drug businesses. It would allow him to wash his dirty money. But as the building company got bigger, Tony was able to walk away and turn money legally. So he was married and he lived in a home that he never imagined he'd ever live in. So Ian cutting him out of the Woodlands deal was huge. So as Tony is sitting at home thinking about a plan to kill Ian, in fact, he was going to write it down, but I don't think he found a pen. So he just, thinking it through in his head, how he can make this happen and quickly. Well, as he's doing that, Tony is hit on the head with a spanner. And for us in America, that's a wrench.
That's a wrench. I had to look up a lot of these words. What's a spade? It's a shovel.
It's a shovel, yes.
So he got hit in the head with a wrench. What's
With
a
a
CP?
wrench.
WPC? That's a woman
police-
cop.
Yes. Yes. I was like, what is that? What is
Englishisms. But back to the climax. He got hit on the head with a wrench and woke up dead,
And
as your
woke
sister
up-
would say.
Exactly. Woke up dead. Blunt force trauma. He was found by his wife.
Tony Curran had made up his mind. He brings his BMW X7 to a halt on the heated driveway. There's a gun buried under the sycamore in the back garden. Or is it under the beach? It's one or the other, but that's something he can think about with a nice cup of tea. And he can try to remember where his spade is while he's at it. Tony Curran is going to kill Ian Ventham. That's a given now. Surely Ian knows it too. You can only take so many liberties before even the most calm and rational man snaps. Tony whistles a tune from an advert and heads indoors. He moved in about 18 months ago on the first real profits from Cooper's Chase. It was the type of house he had always dreamed of. A house built on hard work, on making the right choices, cutting the right corners and backing his own talent. A monument to what he had achieved in brick, glass, and tempered walnut. Tony lets himself in and sets to work switching off the alarm. Ventham had got some of his gang to fit it last week. Polish, the lot of them, but then who isn't these days? He gets the 4-digit code right on the third attempt, a new record. Tony Curran has always taken his security very seriously. For many years, his building company had really just been a front for his drug business, a way to explain away his income, a way to wash away his dirty money. But it slowly got bigger, took up more of his time, brought in more and more money. If you told young Tony he would end up living in this house, he wouldn't have been at all surprised. If you told him he'd buy it with money earned legally, he'd have killed over there and then. His wife Debbie is not back, but that suits him fine for now. It gives him time to concentrate, really think it all through. Tony rewinds back to the row with Ian Ventham, and his fury rises again. Ian was cutting him out of the woodlands, just like that, a conversation on the way to his car. Outdoors, just in case Tony felt like swinging a punch. He would have loved to have smacked him there and then. That was the old Tony. So they had a little row, nice and quiet. No one could possibly have noticed, and that's good for Tony. When Ventham turns up dead, no one can say they saw Tony Curran and Ian Ventham having a ding-dong. Keeps it clean. He sits on a bar stool, pulls it up to the island in his vast kitchen, and slides open a drawer. He needs to get a plan down on paper. Tony is not a believer in luck. He's a believer in hard work. If you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail. An old English teacher of his once told him that, and he never forgotten it. The next year, he torched the same teacher's car following an argument about football, but Tony still had to hand it to the guy. If you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail. As it turns out, there is no paper in the drawer, so Tony decides to work out the plan in his head instead. Nothing needs to be done tonight. Let the world continue for a while. Let the birds keep singing in the garden. Let Ventham think he has won. And then strike. Why did people ever mess with Tony Curran? When had that ever worked out for anyone? Tony hears the noise a second too late. He turns to see the spanner as it swings toward him. A big one too, real old school stuff. There's no way to avoid the swing, and in the brief moment of realization he has, Tony Curran gets it. You can't win them all, Tony. That's fair enough, he thinks. That's fair enough. The blow catches him on the left temple and he collapses to the marble floor. The birds in the garden stop singing for the briefest of moments and then continue their merry tune. High up in the sycamore tree. Or is it the beach? The killer places a photograph on the worktop as Tony Curran's fresh blood begins to form a moat around his walnut kitchen island.
After Tony is killed, the killer leaves a photograph near the body. That evening, Elizabeth finds out about Tony's death. Now, Elizabeth is the head of the murder club, if y'all remember.
Mm-hmm.
So
she might have been a top secret FBI agent.
Exactly.
Back in the day.
And so she decides, you know what? We're going to take this case. We're going to handle this case ourselves. I think we could do that. She got some plans. So she wants to set up set it up so that Donna will be the case, will be their contact on the case, giving them an opportunity to have someone on the inside to give them case files, witness statements, and, forensics and whatnot. Possible suspects in the Tony Curran murder. 1, Ian Bentham. That was his partner, Tony Curran's partner. Then there's also the people in the photograph. That's going to be Jason Richie, Bobby Tanner, and then a hired muscle man. Well, excuse me, Bobby Tanner was the hired muscle man. And then whoever the photographer is, who we learned later is a guy named Turkish Gianni.
Yeah, whoever took the picture, which is, Turkish Johnny.
All right. So the next day, Elizabeth and Joyce take a minibus into town where it was Elizabeth's plan to visit the police station. Joyce just wanted to go to the little vegan shop and just, eat some food and stuff.
The shop is called Anything with a Pulse.
They go into the police station and Elizabeth pretends that her purse is stolen and that she wants to speak to a woman PC. Mm-hmm. She does.
That's a police officer.
Mm-hmm. So the desk sergeant obliges and PC Donna is brought in. Donna is the one that they kind of have for lunch, and she told him stories.
Why are you? No. So she says her purse was stolen. And so the officer is like, well, I can take a statement for you and we'll go. And then she starts crying. And he's like, what do I do? And so Joyce is like, I'm sorry, but my friend is a nun. That's like the big deal about it. And then Elizabeth is like, going along with it.
Tell it, please.
Oh, am I wrong?
No, please proceed.
And so the officer is like, fine, I'll find a lady officer for you to talk to because you're a nun. And he walks away and Elizabeth was like, a nun? That's good, Joyce. And Joyce was like, I thought I'd help you out. And then Donna's like, first of all, you ain't no nun. Second of all, I know both of y'all from that little murder club y'all got at the old folks' home. What do you want?
That's what she said. So,
and they like, no, let me tell you about you.
Mm-hmm. So listen, Elizabeth says to Donna, listen, we know you in town because you had a bad breakup with your boyfriend and you came out here to this small town to get away. So if we could make some arrangements for you to work on a case, do you want to be a part of this Tony Curran murder case? Please,
and
do you want
Donna's
to?
like, what?
Mm-hmm.
First of all, you're only partially right, but they're totally right. And they don't even have evidence of this. They're just older women, so they know stuff.
They just know.
They know you didn't leave London to come hang out in this small town for no reason. You running from a relationship, and we know you bored because nothing ever happened. And then the murder happens, and you're not even on the case because you're a rookie. You want to be on the case? We can arrange it.
We can make some arrangements. We can do that. That's what we could do. So she's really skeptical, but she's also eager to be on this case. Donna is. She wants to, so she accepts. She accepts their offer, but they're like,
what's the worst that could happen?
Mm-hmm. She's like, wait.
She don't really believe they could do it.
Yeah. What do you want from me? Donna's like, what do you want from me? Elizabeth's like, well, just share some information. And Donna's like, well, I can't share, sensitive case information. Oh, of course, Elizabeth says, nothing unprofessional, nothing like that. Donna is given the role of detective on the case, and she works with her partner is Chris Hudson. She's going to be his shadow. And under this program,
y'all, the older people have worked out a way for Donna to be on the case.
They involved. They do it. They doing their thing. They manipulating situations in real life.
I mean, real quick, I think it was Abram who acted feeble-minded.
No, it was Ron.
Oh, Ron Richie?
Yeah, Ron Richie.
So Ron, the boxer's dad, is like acting all feeble-minded while he's talking to the officer because he wants to tell the officer he has some news about the murder. He doesn't. And so the officer is like, okay, come out with the news. And he's like, I feel much better talking to a woman officer. Like that Donna that comes by our assisted living facility. Can you get her? Can I talk to her? And the officer is like, Donna, I think think I know who that is in his mind. He's like, so if I get Donna, will you tell me what you know about the murder? Yes, that would be much better. Absolutely. And he's also kind of acting like confused,
And
all just the front.
Yeah, and Abraham is there to kind of support him. Yes. We could. We'll ask
Yes,
for that.
Donna.
Yeah,
Mhm, that would-
Donna. As the investigation begins, they learn that Tony Curran was a former drug dealer. He had some previous run-ins with the law, minor, some not so minor. But then in 2000, he was identified as the shooter of another young drug dealer in a pub. The witness was a local taxi driver, and he disappeared soon after. So because there were no witnesses, Tony Curran got away scot-free. And since 2000, Tony Curran hasn't done anything to awaken police attention. Meanwhile, Joyce, you remember Joyce? She's the newest member of the murder club. She meets and invites fellow resident Bernard for lunch. And she learns all about Bernard. Bernard had a wife, and she was Indian. They had been married for 47 years. They moved to Cooper's Chase together, and she had a stroke and was at Willows, which is the nursing home where also Penny is, Elizabeth's friend. And so within 6 months of that stroke, his wife died, and she died. That was 18 months ago. And they have one daughter who lives in Vancouver. But this is Joyce's friend. She kind of meets up with him and talks with him. And, she's like a little comfort to him. Ian Bentham is interviewed by Donna and Chris. So they ask if Ian knows the people that is in the photograph that was found near Tony's body. Ian says he only recognizes Jason Richie, and he only recognizes him, he says, because he's a famous boxer. He denied having an argument with Tony. He said until the police said, but somebody heard you arguing with him. He was like, oh, that was just a minor bickering. And plus that, we was talking about automatic sprinklers. I wanted them.
Sprinklers.
And Tony did
You
not.
sound like Roller Ray. If you know what that is.
Stop it. Just
Oh
stop
my
it.
goodness.
I'm trying to have
Sprinklers.
words here, okay?
Okay, you got it.
Y'all know words is hard for me sometimes. Anyway, so he said he wanted to put these new sprinklers and this new sprinkler system in the new flats, but Tony didn't want it because of the expense. All right, that's his take on it. They leave Ian Bentham alone, okay? They walk away. Come back to that another time. Donna and Chris are then invited to Joyce's house by Elizabeth to get and share details. So they get over there and they have this discussion beforehand and say the plan and the goal is to keep Donna and Chris there until they give up some details about the case. They tell Donna and Chris, the murder club tells Donna and Chris that Bentham's business was very profitable, but he wanted to cut Curran out of the new business, the Woodlands. And Bentham signed the papers to cut Tony out of the deal the day before the consultation meeting, which was the meeting where they heard them bickering. Tony Curran's shares all reverted back to Bentham after Curran's death. That's $12.25 million. So it sounds like Bentham really could have done this murder, for the dollar bills.
Yeah, for the money.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
But I did like this setup where they put him in. They invited the police officers into the house. They offered him a seat, and he happened to sit down on the love seat, and then two people sat next to him.
They're holding these two officers hostage. Now, Donna knows what she's in for. She knows how pushy these older people are. Chris is being baptized in the Thursday Murder Club. But by the end of it, he's like, yeah, I like them.
Yeah.
I know they're using me. I know they're using me for information, but you can't help but love them.
But the reading of this part was just so hilarious to me, how they had him sitting in that chair. He was like, I can't even hold it. And look at
They so close he can't even drink his tea. The tea is too hot to hold, and they too close for him to bring it to his mouth to drink it. And he's like a little larger. So they did it on purpose.
Yeah, they set him up for the okie doke. We also learned that Ron's son, Jason, is in the photograph, as I mentioned earlier. Jason Richie, the public loved him. He was a ex-boxer, famous forever. He's done a lot of stuff. But he's also at this stage where he's doing everything. Like, if he was here, he'd be doing Dancing with the Stars, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so he's in that position. So that's how he makes his money now, doing reality shows and advertisements and whatnot. So he stops by the house while Donna and Jason are there. And so they see this as an opportunity to ask him questions. So Ian decides he is tired of waiting. He's going to get started digging on his new development. The graveyard is the easiest to move, so he's going to start there. So he sends Bogdan up to get started, but he also has a graveyard digging company present for them to come in. But once the residents realize that Ian has arrived to start moving the graveyard, they begin to come out and protest. Even Father Mackey is called to the scene. The residents block the entrance and the path to the graveyard. They're even tying themselves to the entrance gate. So Ian calls the police to move the people because they've gone, in his mind, they've gone through all the court proceedings. The people have lost. It's his right. He can get started. These people need to get out of his way. Chris and Donna arrive, and because they heard that someone was calling the police to that location, to Cooper's Chase. So they're like, we'll go out there. So they go out there and listen to the concerns of Ian. Chris tells the people they need to leave or they will be arrested, but not really. Just leave him alone. When Father Mackey shows up at the site, Ian is immediately angered because Father Mackey had actually come to his home already to plead with him not to move the graveyard. And he used, what did he say? He said, you're gonna something like you're gonna be punished for this. You know, God will punish you for this, something like that. You're gonna pay for moving graves. You shouldn't be moving dead bodies. Ian is so upset by his presence, he tells Father Mackey to get off his property, and he reaches to shove him, and they both fall on the ground. Ian falls on top of Father Mackey. Donna and Curran Playfair, and I think I mentioned her earlier. Well, yeah, Donna and Curran Playfair, that is the daughter of the man whose farm Ian wants to buy. She's also there. So Donna and Curran Playfair, they help Ian off the priest. They pull him up off the priest because they're both on the ground. All right. So a group of residents, including Joyce, Ron, and Bernard, surround Ian and restrain him, while the other residents guard Father Mackey, who's now dazed and on the ground. Ian screams for Mackey's arrest, but Chris pulls Ian aside and says, listen, what you did caused him to fall, so you could go to jail. I strongly suggest you go home today. And as Ian walks away towards his Range Rover, we hear him utter confused words.
But at that very moment, he sees Father Matthew Mackey standing there in his frock and little white collar like he owns the place, as bold as you like. This is Ian's land. He storms toward the barricade and has his finger in Father Mackey's face in seconds. If you weren't a vicar, I would knock you out. The crowd starts to surround them as if it's a fight in a pub car park. Get off of my property or I'll get you thrown off. Ian aims a shove at Mackey's shoulder, knocking the older man backward. Mackey reaches out for balance, grabbing Ian's t-shirt, and the two men lose their balance and fall to the ground together. Donna, with the help of a horrified-looking Curran Playfair, pulls Ian up and off the priest. A group of residents, including Joyce, Ron, and Bernard, then surround and restrain Ian Bentham, while residents on the other side form a guard around Father Mackey, now sitting dazed on the ground. School playground stuff, really, but he looks shaken. "Calm it, Mr. Bentham. Calm down," yells Donna. "Arrest him! Trespass!" yells Ian, now being pulled away from the scene by a group of determined septuagenarians, octogenarians, and even one nonagenarian who missed Second World War call-up by a day and had regretted it ever since. Joyce finds herself in the scrum. How strong these men must have been in their day. Ron, Bernard, John, Ibram, and how diminished they were now. The spirit was still willing at least, but only Chris Hudson was really able to hold Bentham back. The testosterone was lovely while it lasted, though. "I'm protecting sacred ground, peacefully and lawfully," says Father Mackey. Donna helps Father Mackey to his feet, dusting him down and feeling the frailty of the old man beneath the loose black cassock. Chris pulls Ian Bentham from the scrum of bodies surrounding him. He can see the adrenaline surging through Ian's body, the sort of thing he's seen 1,000 times before in the late-night drunks of too many towns, the veins riding the muscles that poke out from his t-shirt, a giveaway of steroid abuse. "Home now, Mr. Bentham," orders Chris Hudson, "before I arrest you." "I didn't touch him," protests Ian. Chris remains quiet to keep the conversation private. "He stumbled, Mr. Bentham. I saw that. But he stumbled after you made contact with him, however light. So if I want to arrest you, I will. And allow a policeman a hunch, there might be 1 or 2 witnesses to help me in court. So if you don't want to be charged with assaulting a priest, which wouldn't look good in your brochures, then you get in your car and you drive away. Understand?" Ian nods, but without conviction. His brain already somewhere else, making some other calculation. He then shakes his head slowly and sadly at Chris Hudson. Something's not right here. Something's up. "Well, whatever's up will still be up tomorrow," says Chris. "So get yourself home, calm yourself down, and mop your brow. Be a man and take a defeat." Ian turns and walks toward his car. Defeat. As if. As he passes the low loader, he bangs twice on the cab door and cocks his thumb toward the exit. He walks slowly, thinking, "Where's Bogdan? Bogdan's a good guy. He's Polish. Ian needs to get him to tile his swimming pool. He's too lazy. They all are. He'll talk to Tony Curran. Tony will know what to do." But did Tony lose his phone? Something about Tony. Ian reaches the Range Rover. The car has been clamped. His dad will be furious. He's only borrowed it. He'll have to get the bus from town and his dad will be waiting for him. Ian is frightened and starts to cry. "Don't cry, Ian. He'll see. Ian doesn't want to go home." He searches his pockets for change, then stumbles and topples backward. He reaches out for something to hold, but to his surprise, there is only air. Ian Bentham is dead before he hits the ground. But we should say that this is written in a really interesting way where Ian is walking. He notices someone hit his car and he's thinking, that's my dad's car. My dad's going to be so angry with me. And he starts crying and he tells himself, "Ian, don't cry." And then he falls back and he goes to catch something, but is shocked to realize there is nothing there and he is dead before he hits the ground. It discombobulates the reader in a way that makes you feel drugged, as Ian must also be drugged. I thought that was really interesting the way it was written, because I'm like, why this thug crying in the middle of the street about a car his dad owns? That can't be right, because he's got money, so it's his car. It's not his dad's car. But he's that was out of it.
That was really weird. You could tell he was out of it. While this fight is going on for Ian to get inside of the gate to start working on the graveyard to move, Bogdan has already started digging at the grave. And as he digs, he uncovers bones outside of a coffin. Whose bones are they?
Ew.
Is it just the way the bones were buried back then? Or is this a murder? Is this why there's so much anger around the moving of the graveyard? Is someone trying to hide a murder? Listen.
Probably.
Bogdan decides he can trust Elizabeth. And so he decides he wants to bring Elizabeth up to see the bones outside the coffin. And he decides that he can trust Elizabeth. Here's why. Elizabeth had charged him up just before he walked up the path to go dig up the bones and asked him if he had murdered Tony Curran. And he was like, nah, I didn't do that. I ain't do that.
Mhm.
I ain't do it. She's like, okay. And they went on.
No, that's not why. And then she goes, Bogdan, right? He goes, yeah. Like, what's your name? And she goes, Marina. And she thought this might work because he's thinking in his head, my mother's name was Marina. And so he instantly is attached to Elizabeth because she's lied and said her name is Marina. But she goes, what can you expect when you have all these tattoos? One of them's going to be your mama's name. I'm going to just take her name and trick you into trusting me. These people smart. These older people are smart. So yeah, she tells him her name's Marina. He instantly trusts her because that was his mother's name.
This is a true story, you guys. You can believe what Kari said. Listen. So he then takes her later that evening. He takes her up to the coffin to see it. And she sees the bones. And Elizabeth tells him that they're going to keep the secret between them until she decides what to do. Elizabeth has another case to investigate. The murder club decides that whoever murdered Ian must have murdered the body that's outside the buried coffin. They have an idea who it could be because whoever killed the body in the coffin had to be here in the 70s and then here again. But who could that be? They do have an idea. Not sure. Possible suspects in the I Invent the Murder. Listen, the murder club was there. They were all there when it happened. So they decided that they are all suspects of the I Invent the Murder because they were present and had access to the deceased. We also learned that Ian was injected with a massive overdose of fentanyl in his upper arm just moments leading up to his collapse. So there are 70 possible suspects because so many of the residents were present trying to prevent them from getting into the gate. So they deleted people who were never close to Ian or wouldn't have been able to get to him like really quickly. So they deleted those that were on walkers. They deleted those that had severe mobility issues. They also deleted those who had mobility scooters. They deleted those who had cataracts. And then, of course, the 3 people who were padlocked to the gate. So they narrowed their list down a little further. Then Ibrahim and Richie get together and they narrow it down a little further. Now they decide that Bernard, he be hanging out at the graveyard. Plus, he hasn't seemed to recover from his wife's death, so surely he has something to do with it. Then they think about Father Mackey. He was there, something going on with him. And then Karen Playfair, she was there, something going on with her. And then Richie, he was there, so he's possible. And then Ibrahim says, and then how about your son, Jason?
The ex-boxer, yeah.
Yeah, maybe him. And so they get into a little discussion about that. But Jason gets written down, Ibrahim, and then, of course, Elizabeth and Joyce. So we're just getting ready to jump right to the meat of it. Who killed Ian Bentham? Elizabeth decides to question Father Mackey, who really isn't a priest, but a doctor who has access to fentanyl, right? So she plans to meet him at the chapel for a confession. Elizabeth tells a possible story for the priest and shares a confession. She said she just needed to get it off her chest before she died. The priest listened carefully, and after Elizabeth...
Yeah, she's saying, I killed somebody, and I buried them up in that hill.
And
I'm so sad about it. What do you think?
Yeah, what do you think? And after Elizabeth is finished with her story, Dr. Mackey says, I don't believe a word of what you just said. You weren't even here in 1970. And Elizabeth says,
she goes,
you were triggered much by my story? And Dr. Mackey kind of like, okay.
He just sighs and rolls his eyes like, these
Exactly.
people stupid.
That's crazy. She was like, gotcha. He was like, Dr. Mackey says, first off, call me Matthew. Elizabeth said, well, first things first, Matthew, why did you kill Ian Bentham? Matthew Mackey tells his story. We learn that when he was a young priest, he moved to the convent and fell in love with one of the nuns. Her name was Maggie. They had a relationship. And I think they were ready to run off together, but Maggie was tied.
He was ready.
But Maggie was tied to her nunship. She was in the religion.
So it was interesting because he saw the priesthood as a job, like any job. And he wasn't a very religious person, but this was what kept a roof over his head. So he fell in love with this nun and he was like, hey, I'll give up the priesthood and let's go run away together and I can get a job. You know, I have skills. And she's like, well, I'm kind of in it for the faith. So I got to think about it. It was harder for her.
Yeah, it was definitely harder for her. So when she turns up pregnant, she tells a fellow nun, and that fellow nun tells Sister Mary. And Sister Mary, I'm going to say like she's her boss or something. How about that? She tells her, and when Sister Mary finds out, she tells Maggie, a car's going to come for you tomorrow, and you're going to go back to from whence you came, Ireland.
So Maggie hung herself, and his arrangement with the head mother, whatever, I think that's what she's called,
is that she could be
was
buried in the graveyard of eternal rest.
Yeah, and that car that was supposed to come for the nun, he would get in it and go back home. And then when that head nun died, he went back to the church, to that specific church, so that he could be with Maggie's grave and just be near her remains. That was important to him because that was the only woman he ever loved. And he called the son that they never had Patrick. So he wanted to be near Maggie and Patrick. And so he's pouring his heart out to the Thursday Murder Club. And they're like, listen, this is so touching. I'm touched. You touched? Because I'm touched. However, that makes you more of a suspect than anybody because you didn't want those remains to be moved. And he was like, yeah, well, but I didn't do it.
Exactly. Matthew Mackey did not kill Ian Bentham. He only wanted to prevent Maggie's grave from being dug up. That's all. Sad story.
Which is motivation to kill Ian. But he says he didn't.
But he ain't do it, okay? He ain't do it. So one day, Elizabeth heads over. Well, one thing happened. Curran Playfair, y'all remember her? That's Gordon Playfair's daughter. They want to, Ian wants to buy their farmland. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was going to try to flirt with her to get her father to sell.
That's right. That's right. One day she's hanging out with Jason Richie because Jason Richie had accused her of killing Ian Bentham too. And so they hanging out one time and, she sees a picture.
Well, I think they met on Tinder, right?
Yeah, they met on
a
Tinder,
date.
but then she got called back to their house so they could have another discussion.
Well, yeah, but during the day, he's like, yeah, you really nice. By the way, I think you's a murderer.
So everybody's a detective now, let me assure you.
Yeah. Because the ex-boxer now, he doesn't want police thinking it's him, which they currently do. So he's trying to solve the case also.
Everybody.
And so he accuses her and she's like, no, it's not me, you stupid man. But
She did say
and
that.
she gives some convincing reasons why. First of all, she enjoys, even though she could afford maybe a bigger house away from her father, the house she has now that she lives in with her father is the ideal life for her. Why would she want to move out of that? And then she gives him some other reasons. She's laughing at him. She's like, but you know,
you're all right,
continue
though.
to lunch.
Mm-hmm.
You've accused me of murder. What a lovely story to tell our future grandchildren.
So anyway, she does eventually get together with her and him and his pa, Ron Richie, Jason Richie get together and she's over and she notices a magazine, the Cooper Chase magazine. And she recognized someone who had been there in the 70s. And she pointed that out to Ron. So Ron...
The magazine or the photo?
The photo in the magazine. So she points that out to Ron, and Ron, of course, must tell Elizabeth. So Elizabeth heads over to her friend, Penny, at the nursing home to catch her up on the case. And as she's speaking with Penny, she asks John, do you remember a case that Penny worked on about a girl who was stabbed during a burglary? She bled to death in the arms of her boyfriend. Everyone knew it was the boyfriend, but they couldn't support the case, so the case was closed because it was considered a midday burglar had come in and stole something. While nobody believes that is the case, they feel strongly that the boyfriend killed him, but they couldn't charge him. Anyway, so Penny was one of the police officers who came to the home at the day of the incident. So she saw this man, and the boyfriend fled from her police car and was never seen again. But Penny did see him again. Penny killed him.
She took justice in her own hand.
Mm-hmm.
Very wrong.
And it was revealed as she got sicker. So as she's going through her dementia, she starts snitching on herself. Hey, John. John is her husband. She like, hey, can you pass me that pen? Hey, remember when I killed that man? What we gonna do about it, me and you? And he loved her so much. He like, I don't know, Penny. I don't know. Okay, well, I'm sure you'll think of something. Thank you for the pen. So she's telling her stories, but then her stories turn into secrets, and now John doesn't know the truth. And so he's trying to protect his wife. And so John couldn't let the graveyard be dug up. He could not. So John killed Ian Bentham. Period.
So basically, at this point in the story, you realize, oh, everyone's a murderer.
Everyone is a murderer.
Because these two murders, Ian, and then before Ian, Tony?
Tony Curran. Mm-hmm.
Who killed Tony?
That's what we're getting ready to go into now.
Oh. Go ahead. You got it.
Oh, okay. So what happened to Tony Curran? Listen, the morning Tony Curran died, Jason Richie receives the photograph in the mail that was found near Tony Curran's body. He's unsure why he received it or who he received it from. He decides that maybe it's from Tony, and maybe Tony wants to blackmail him or something. So he decides he's going to go to Tony's house and ask him about it. And when he gets there, Tony doesn't answer. He assumes that Tony can see him on the security camera and doesn't want to speak to him. He rings the bell several more times, and then he leaves. He didn't hear anything on the inside, so he didn't know if Tony was killed before or after he was present. That evening, though, he learns that Tony was found dead. Jason Richie did not kill Tony Curran.
The boxer. He didn't kill nobody.
Right. He didn't kill nobody. He didn't kill nobody. And he didn't figure out who killed anybody, okay? He wasn't a detective. Listen. So then one day, Elizabeth is out late. Now, Bogdan, she had become friends with Bogdan. Bogdan, who was the guy that dug up the bones, he was hanging out with her husband, Stephen. You know, her husband would be home all the time and she'd be gone. He would come and play chess with her husband. So one day, Stephen and him are playing chess, and Stephen asks Bogdan, "Can I ask you a question? It's a little out there, but I just want to ask you. I just want to know." "We're friends," Bogdan says. "You can ask me anything." "Okay. Well, forgive me if I'm speaking out of turn, but from everything I heard, I think you killed Tony Curran." And Bogdan is like, "Yeah, I did. You're right."
But this is so cute. I'm sorry, in the context of the novel, because Stephen, right, is being cared for by Elizabeth, his wife, who is the clever one. And yet there are two people in Elizabeth's life, the two people closest to her, who have both outsmarted her. First, Penny, who is basically comatose at this point, but never told her she had killed somebody. Right. And Elizabeth is like trying to figure out this murder, and it was Penny the whole time. And then Penny's husband, Stephen, who is like not that far gone
no.
where he can't obviously tell Bogdan is the murderer and have a whole conversation about it over chess. All very civilized.
Very
And Bogdan's
civilized. Very civilized.
yeah, like you said, Bogdan's like, it was me, and let me tell you all the details because I like you.
He said it's a secret though. There's only one other person who knows. Stephen says, "Mum's the word."
And then Elizabeth walks in and Stephen just gives her a kiss and starts shaking like he losing it while he like winking at Bogdan like, oh, it's only me and you, bro. I know your secret. I ain't gonna tell.
So the reason Bogdan killed Tony was because Tony had his best friend killed. The best friend, Bogdan's best friend, was the taxi driver. And one day, that taxi driver saw Tony shoot the drug dealer. Tony knew that the taxi driver saw him shoot the drug dealer. So Tony had him killed. So, of course, Bogdan blames Tony for requesting that his taxi driver friend get killed. And so he's going to pay. Bogdan arranged already for the person that actually killed his friend to die. He took care of that a long time ago. But he waited for the perfect opportunity to kill Tony. And his perfect opportunity was when he had the opportunity, when he was able to install the surveillance system in his home, and he fitted everything up, but he didn't set it to record anything. And he made a key. And then it was the right time. He killed him. The end.
Okay. You ready to take a break?
Let's take a quick break, please.
Okay, sounds good.
And we're back. So that was the story, Kari. What is your final verdict, and would you recommend the book?
So this book was a bit difficult for me to follow with the characters. However, I feel that Richard Osman gave each character life and like little telltale signs. So if you couldn't get the names right away, you knew them by their characteristics. You knew if someone was being clever, it was Elizabeth. I like how he named Joyce's daughter Joanna. So you know that Joanna is always tied to Joyce. Little things like that to help you follow the characters through the book until it becomes like second nature and you do, you have fully attached yourself to each character. So I thought that was done really well. It got a little Poirot-ish for me with all of the characters and with the twists and also with reveals that the reader isn't privy to. That's one of my biggest pet peeves in a mystery novel when the characters in the book know something I don't. That means I can never figure out who the killer is.
Oh, and you're not
and
okay
it
with
means
that.
you can always, no, because you can always just create like some Deus Ex Machina at the end to conveniently put all the puzzle pieces together. And that's a little frustrating to me. I didn't read all of this to now be told, aha, it was something you never knew. Aha.
It was a missing piece.
Yeah, I mean, I don't love that. However, I enjoyed this book. I felt like it was a book you could put down for weeks, pick up and enjoy just as you did weeks ago. And by that, I mean, it's not a page turner, but not every book has to be. It's just a nice, easygoing afternoon on a Sunday. Very entertaining in its way. And I thought that was very enjoyable. Especially, we just had a blizzard here and reading that book while it was blizzarding outside. Blizzarding? Whatever.
New word
with
alert.
some tea while it was snaining. Go back to word by word, the dictionary episode for details on that. But to read this book, it was just a delight. That's what I'll say. This book in one word, delightful. And then it does touch on some more serious things. We didn't get into it in the deep dive, but Donna needs these older people. She is kind of like stuck in life and they see right through her. And they also provide her with the diversion she needs. And I think, those golden friends that we talked about in our theme, that's what they do. They help drag us out of the pits of despair that we find ourselves in when a love interest doesn't work out or when you have a falling out with a friend. And they help put everything in perspective. So I really liked those interactions. I thought Donna was going to get with Chris in the end, her partner. That didn't happen. And I kind of respect that too, because it would have been very, of course. And so Richard Osman decided not to go that route. So, how badly do we need older people? Like in the context today, in the context of today, who aren't politicians or people like that. We need them very much. And they can outsmart us and solve murder cases before the cops can. And so that was cute. I would highly recommend it. What about you? Would you recommend this book? What's your final verdict?
Okay, so let me just tell you what I didn't like. I did not like the plot twist for every murder. I didn't like it. It was too much for me.
Yeah.
That I was like,
talk more about that. What did you not like about these twists?
The idea it's fine to think one person did it and kind of throw you off track like that. That was okay.
Yeah.
But then to have a whole story associated with each one of those people and not, they had their own story and not that they...
And for it not to mean a thing.
Yeah. So for me, this book was very hard, very difficult to read. I struggled with it, as you could tell in my retelling.
No, you did good.
It was a struggle to read because of that. Those plot twists were absolutely too much. And then I feel like, and I couldn't go back and find the character, but they introduced a new character in like chapter 100. That sent me over the roof. I was like, how dare you?
Yeah, when I'm already at 15 characters and you just bring in a 16, for real?
I don't need that in my life.
Just because?
I don't need that in my life.
Yeah,
I didn't like that.
But the story of the priest and the nun touching.
Yeah, but I didn't need it.
And it's telling. Yeah. Oh.
Unfortunately, I didn't need it. I didn't need it. It was touching.
Yeah.
There were a couple other stories in there. The story of Bernard. Bernard's story. I didn't need Bernard's story. That's why I didn't tell it. Because I didn't need that in my life. Again, another touching story, but it was extra. So those plot twists and all the extra stories were absolutely too much for me. And that could have a lot to do with my work situation and the load that I have. I already have a lot on my mind, but reading this story just wasn't the story that I needed to read right now. You know what I mean? But I did love the four main characters. They tickled me throughout the story. I was tickled pink. I liked how Joyce told her, had her diary entries. I enjoyed that very much. I just laughed. I enjoyed it deeply. It was just really hard to read those plot twists and extra stories that had nothing to do, in my mind, nothing to do with the whole plot.
It reminds me of like ingredients that are really delicious. Like I love ice cream and I love a Merlot wine and I love tomatoes. But if you put them all in the same dish, that's disgusting. I do not want it. And each character was great, fantastic, well developed and interesting. And I felt like they were friends I want to have. But the story they were in, I did not need it.
Yeah.
I agree with you there.
Yeah. But
so you wouldn't recommend this?
I go back and forth. For the characters, for the four characters, by all means, I love them a lot. They were just so funny to me, and I chuckled really throughout the book. It's just when I got to that part about
Johnny. Once they introduced Gianni, I was like done. And the gym.
Just extra stuff for no reason. It's too late in the book for this. I'm tired already. So I don't know. I don't know if I can recommend it. I don't know.
Well, you have to make a decision.
Do I? I'm going to go with a no. I wouldn't recommend. Although I recommended it a couple weeks ago. I take that
in our first show of the
recommendation
season.
back. Don't read it.
So do I. I think you'd be better off reading Sorry. And Then There Were None, where it's the same idea where these
multiple
extremely
characters.
detailed characters, but Agatha is telling you to pay attention for a reason. And in every little fold, crease, look that the character gives, it's a clue for the reader. I felt, yeah. So we've been through this already.
Honestly,
but,
though,
yeah.
what I would say, it just could be that the timing for reading this book, because I like what you said, put it down and pick it up. Yeah, I might have been able to take that in, but just right now, my mind, this wasn't the book to read during my busy season at work. It just wasn't.
Yeah. Okay. I respect that. Well, Alexis, thank you for that deep dive into the Thursday Murder Club, a book you would not recommend today.
Not today, sorry.
But that you enjoyed. It just be like
Right.
that sometimes. So what are we reading next week, Alexis?
Long Bright River by Liz Moore. And I think we have
That's
something
right.
special for you next week.
Please stay tuned. We have a very, very, very special treat in next week's episode. Thank you all for listening to Lit Society. We'll see you next Thursday. Lit Society is brought to you by Alexis Honoria and Kari Herrera. Support the cause by leaving a 5-star review for our show on Apple Podcasts, along with a comment about why you absolutely love us. Love y'all too. Love you. If you've enjoyed what you just heard, tell a friend about Lit Society. Visit litsocietypod.com for show notes, this month's book list, and to sign up for our amazing email newsletter. And until next time, read something.